Donk Nation, Jackson, Janet's greetings, and welcome to your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, keeping it nonsensical in the Steelers talk, and we're keeping the streak alive. Gingy, welcome back again.
Gingy in the house. Week before the draft, Donkey. It's a buzzing, right? Good or bad, though.
There's some scary scenarios that I'm hearing going around out there in Pittsburgh land. But I wanted to start off this week, Gingy, by saying I watched some UFL football finally, got more than just a quarter in. I got to watch a whole game. I was watching whoever won the Birmingham Stallions, whoever won the last 2 years of the USFL. I was watching them, and there was one guy who has former NFL experience, I think might have even been on the Steelers roster for a little bit, who to me showed when I was watching there that he's a guy that belongs in the NFL level, and that was a tight end by the name of Jace Sternberger. Had some time in Green Bay, has had a little bit of NFL production, and I thought it was pretty cool because I don't see how this doesn't earn him a contract, much like that kicker who keeps kicking 60-yard field goals but wasn't allowed to kick in college. Like, it's kind of fun to see some fringe guys really making a push for NFL rosters.
That's what I'm talking about, Donkey, and it's this time of year. Hey, I think there's going to be some more fringe guys. Still looking at how that the special teams changes are going to factor into all that in the draft as well. Are you going to see guys getting taken who maybe might not normally be taken at those levels, Donkey?
I don't think so because we've seen it before that guys with return ability get drafted and get overdrafted from time to time. More specifically, punt returners. But it's a very similar skill set, and we've seen it. How many times have the Steelers done it? Dree Archer, Calvin Austin III. You see a guy like King who was brought in, who Houston drafted in the third round due to return abilities. So it's not like these return guys have gotten passed up in the past, per se. They're a little less desirable, and I don't think this will change their draft stock because while the kickoff is now going to become a play and a play of importance in the NFL, I think we're overestimating now because a lot of times what led to big kick returns our whole life, Gingy? What was the main thing?
I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Someone big getting out of their lane. Right? Someone leaving their lane, right?
Okay. Because I was going to go with that. The only time I've ever seen the Steelers do big kick returns is when they put, like, one of their premier guys back there. A Santonio Holmes return, an Antonio Brown return, like...
Punt returns
I get where you're going.
Brown.
I get where you're going, yeah.
Let's clarify. Punt returns on Antonio Brown. Kick returns are done when someone leaves their lane. The thing is, you're going to see a lot less lane problems in the new way of kickoffs because you start so much closer. There's so much less time for you to move and get out of position. I do think it will lead to better starting field positions for most teams because you're not going to see touchbacks 60% of the time. And where this starts off, I think you're going to see the average field position start probably between the 30 and 35 will be like almost every game where you're starting. And if you're really bad at kick coverage, it starts to become you just kick the damn ball out of bounds and start them at the 40, right? I think it's going to lead to an uptick in offense. I don't think it leads to a change in draft profile because, again, you're talking a specialty player who's only going to see the field if your team sucks, right? Because if you're not giving up points, that guy doesn't play.
How about these kickers? Is it going to be a different skill set to drop that ball in there maybe with a little bit more accuracy, an alley-oop rather than just a swift boot?
Yep. Then that's where you're going to see the biggest changes with the kickers. You're going to see, I would not be surprised here if you see guys who are more specialty guys coming in or potentially guys who are better at the loft kicks a lot of times are punters. Don't be surprised if you see some teams starting to switch towards their punter to do these kicks and move towards that style of play. And potentially, hey, I'm just saying, you're allowed to keep practice squad players and you're allowed to elevate them, 3 times before they have to be on the main roster? Why not roster a guy who's really good at these kickoffs and use him in key divisional matchups?
Yeah, because if you're thinking about legitimately, and I'm not saying you're that far off with like a 30 to 35 yard start, right? If you find a kicker who just drops it 0 to 5 every single time and you back them up almost 10 yards first down, that is consistently valuable. Especially if he has to do it every time you score points, right?
Right. And the harder part I think about this, and this is why I don't think it's going to change much, is the kicking skill would be so much different if your team could start when the ball was kicked, right? Then there's more strategy. But the ball not starting till the return team touches it, that's when play starts, makes it maybe where we're just talking something that's completely moot point because let's be honest, every NFL kicker has the ability to do the short kick. We've seen it from every team. And essentially that's what it's going to become is short corner kicks now. And yes, I think what this is where I really think you're gonna see the big jump is in those 40-yard penalties. I think you're going to see so many more of them because these teams aren't going to want to put the ball in the middle. They're going to try to corner pin, and that's a dangerous strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that going awry a couple times, and that'd be a big deal at the end of a close game, right? When you're looking to try to
Mm-hmm.
back somebody up deep and they start at the 40.
On the out of bounds, isn't it? I'd have to look back, but I believe it's only the 30 or 35-yard line they get the ball if you boot it out of the end zone. And I'm just saying, taking that hit might not be a bad play at a crucial time, just avoiding the major return, right? Just don't let it happen.
Yeah, especially if they've got somebody back there who can blow it wide open or has consistently shown the ability. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are fun things. Some new rules coming in. A later trade deadline's the other one that might be a thing. And with the NFL now moving more towards these player moves and teams tanking, the trade deadline getting moved back is a really good thing for contending football teams, Gigi, since we're talking about rule changes.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that. When's it? How far is it getting pushed back? Do you know?
A week.
No,
It's
I
a
mean,
week later. But
so
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it might matter to someone.
Yep.
But yeah, cool. No, I like that. I'm really interested to see what direction Steelers are going to go. You were mentioning earlier before the show, Donkey, that there are some very sus propositions out there, perhaps.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff. Gingy, so do we want to get into some Steelers zone talk now, I guess?
Well, what do you got?
And by the way, yeah, touchbacks are the 30-yard line, so don't be surprised if that becomes more of a strategy, just taking the 30-yard touchback, which again will benefit offenses, right?
Right?
So do you want to talk how every single wide receiver I've ever heard in NFL has been rumored to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, I'm not sure which
Yeah,
one we should talk about. Do you want to talk about Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf? Do you want to talk about that failed Traylon Burks kid from Tennessee? Do you want to talk about Juju Smith-Schuster? Do you want to talk about how Tyler Boyd, by the way, still isn't signed? Pittsburgh, what the hell are you doing? Come on, let's get that train going. You want to talk about trading for who else have I heard out there? You brought up Justin Jefferson, which is probably the only name I'd be on board with out of ones that I've heard so far. I've heard AJ Brown speculation with Devontae Smith getting that new contract in Philadelphia. I don't know where we should stop. I don't know who we should talk about. Heck, there's talk that CeeDee Lamb's not happy because Dallas doesn't want to give him big money. Why not throw him on board? And Gingy, the most spectacular thing I've heard. Next year, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to trade for Dak Prescott. Oh my, please say
whoa,
no.
whoa. No, thank you. You left. I think you left one of those names off there. I've heard a lot about Brandon Ayuk. Have you heard a lot
Oh,
about
yes.
Ayuk?
Yes. Minnie Tomlin, I did leave his name off there. And that's because I think we've already talked that one out. But we can talk about Brandon Ayuk. And this is my honest question. Gingy, is Brandon Ayuk a number one wide receiver?
Not in my opinion. No, no.
So,
Unfortunately, that's a lot. I'm
so
trying not to hate, but like, no.
would you be down with trading a player? So let's say the player's Pat Fryermuth, your first round draft pick for Brandon Ayuk and then paying Brandon Ayuk $28 million a year.
No.
Let's move it to a second-round draft pick. Does that change your mind at all?
Oh, Donkey, we need a real number one. And if that's not the guy, you don't try to force it. I don't know if that's the real number one guy. Is that the guy that opens up Pickens?
First off, I think Ayuk's a good player. I don't know how he would do where he's the number one option because let's be honest, he's not the number one option in San Francisco. But that's not even the problem, Gingy. The problem for me is how much you have to pay him. And yes, I want the Steelers to spend on offense, but not spend dumb. Look at these teams who have big money wide receivers. It's a carousel every year, and then they complain every year. Whereas Kansas City did it the smart way and let that guy walk and then replace his production. I like Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a good, solid player. I think he's a great number 2 option or number 3 option in the pass-catching game down there in San Francisco. I don't want to give up capital and pay the dude $30 million a year. If he was a free agent, I'd be like, hell yeah, give that dude $30 million a year because we give more than that to the defense. Let's at least spend money on offense before we have to pay a quarterback.
Right. I'm okay with paying, but not paying money and draft capital.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the double whammy here that kills me with the Brandon Ayuk thing. I think that's where I lose it. It's just like, I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't trade for Justin Jefferson, and my pure reason is I don't trust wide receivers once they start getting leg injuries. I said it before with defensive linemen, lower leg injuries specifically with linemen. I just don't trust paying them money once they get injured. And that's where the problem is for me with a guy like, even a great one like Justin Jefferson, right?
He's got to be out there.
You're going to be healthy.
He's got to be available. Yeah, he's got to be available, especially if you break the bank on him. He takes up all your cap. He's got to be available.
And these guys,
he got to be available, and he got to get the touches. Like whatever scheme you're running, he's got to be dead center of it.
I fully agree. And the bigger thing to me is look at some of those guys and then remember every receiver who's ever been in that system's produced. Because don't forget, before Justin Jefferson, it was Stephon Diggs. And don't forget, after Justin Jefferson went down, don't downplay the rookie year that Jordan Addison had there in Minnesota, dude. He put up numbers even after Justin Jefferson went down. What really slowed them down is when Kirk Cousins went down. So let's not overplay systems here. Let's not go, man, Brandon Ayuk's great. Dude, who was the last wide receiver in a Kyle Shanahan system that failed as a number 1 or number 2?
Yeah, I don't remember.
It doesn't happen. I mean, you look at even his days in Washington, they would have 2 receivers who were lighting it up. He goes to Atlanta. People thought Calvin Ridley was going to be the next coming until he got suspended and some other stuff. But Julio Jones, he goes to San Francisco. All of a sudden, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Be wary of trading for these guys who come from ultra-productive systems and expecting the same production when they come to your team.
I agree with that. I don't. He's not the number. If we're going to go out and get a number 1, I'd like to get a guy who is the clear number 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Stephon
Diggs would have been okay.
Yeah, old and expensive, but
again, expensive. You got to pay the second rounder and the big check. Yes, I hear you.
And you have to hope that the wrong side of 30 doesn't hit him hard.
Yeah.
That's my biggest one on him. I'm going to be honest, there is one name, and I think it's Treylon Burks. It's a dude from Tennessee. He was a first or second round draft pick who's done nothing there. He's a guy that interests me, not coming in as the Steelers' number 2, right? They still need to address that. That's still a big missing factor. But as a guy, you could probably give up a 6th or a 7th round draft pick come draft day and get a guy who's had some NFL experience and has come in with a high pedigree, right? maybe it works out. Maybe the change of scenery is exactly what he needs. Or worst comes to worst, you lose a 6th-round pick. And let's be honest, Gingy, can you remember the last Steelers 6th-round pick who was awesome? And no, Dirty Red doesn't count.
Oh, see, that's why we need Alaskers here to have us on the back end first. There's got to be a Steelers 6th-round pick that has landed here.
I can't think of a real recent one. Obviously, Antonio Brown's the answer, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking after that.
But I really don't think there's a guy after that who you say wow about. The offensive lineman Chris Hubbard, another guy who comes to mind. Great long career out of a 6th-round pick. I mean, he was a starter in Pittsburgh, a starter in Arizona. Shoot, I think he even started last year in Cleveland for some games before he got hurt. It's just, there are those guys, but you're talking, what, once every 6 years you hit on one? And I mean,
right.
I would take the chance
not a ton
on
of
it
value there.
because, let's be honest, the wide receiver room right now is very bare, is the way to put it. And we're going to need some guys who get open early, I think, by the looks of this offensive line. And that gets me into this. The name I am hearing right now come up most often with the Pittsburgh Steelers is Graham Barton, left tackle out of Duke. And I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, the dude is fast. And that's what they want to show off. Oh, look how good his running time was in the 20-yard, in the 5-yard shuttle, in the 40-yard dash. Dude, he's an offensive lineman. I don't give a crap if he runs a 4.4. That's not what matters. He refused to do the best bench press, which makes me think he's a little weak. And I watched his game tape against Pitt. He got run over, dude. He is a little weak. Now his pass rush numbers don't look terrible, but he is playing with a 4th-year senior quarterback in a system that understood how to get the ball out quick. And the interior of that Duke line was terrible. So if they're beating him up the middle, the guy on the outside doesn't get noticed. If you want to put it into perspective, though, only stat we can really use is PFF, right, for overall ratings. And I know it sucks, but they do rate colleges. Okay, that old kid out of Notre Dame who's supposed to be a first-round draft pick graded out at like a 97. Graham Barton grades out a 75. Average is 60. So you're talking a slightly above average college left tackle. But get this, Gingy, the Steelers want to draft him to play center.
No, thank you. We've talked about before taking people out of their position. Steelers don't seem to have good luck with that. Few guys really dropped the ball on lately. Obviously, Kevin Dotson coming to mind, Donkey.
Even Kendrick Green. I mean, he moved back to his natural left guard, and I know it was only 4 games before he got hurt. But in those 4 games, dude, he looked as good as any Steeler offensive lineman looked last year. That has to say something, right?
I mean, yeah, I think it does.
And this is what scares me more, and maybe it's not a cause for concern for you, but Gingy, who was the last Steeler offensive lineman that was drafted that you said exceeded expectations?
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time too, Donkey, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked
drafted, exceeded expectations.
We talked about getting to a second contract, yeah, and Chuck Scorfor was the only guy. But exceeded expectations. So, a guy who came in and you're like, man, he did more than what he was portrayed to do. I guess the answer could be Dan Moore Jr. Did not draft, signed him off a practice squad as a defensive lineman from Philly and turned him into an offensive tackle. But fair example.
That's the only one that comes to mind is an overachiever.
I hate to say this, but the answer is Dan Moore Jr. because Dan Moore Jr. was drafted as most people's projection of him was he was at best a swing tackle. And say what you want, the dude's been a starting left tackle in the NFL for 3 years. Now, whether or not I would say he outperformed the swing tackle because he's shown he can start in the NFL. He is a liability, but he's not. And you know how I feel about Dan Moore Jr., so saying this first,
just tread carefully, Donkey.
I feel he outperformed what he was drafted as. Yeah, I don't think he ever turned into a stud, but what he was drafted as, I feel And this is what I'm going to say. A fourth-round draft pick who is a 3-year starter at left tackle outperforms their draft capital.
Yeah, okay. I mean, still nothing to write home about here for me.
No, because I broke it down before. First rounders should be your Pro Bowlers. Second and third rounders need to be your starters. Fourth and fifth rounders are your backups. Sixth and seventh rounders are your wild cards. So the fact is, by my own definition of what makes a good draft, he's a guy who is drafted in a backup spot that has started for 3 years. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that means he outperformed his draft capital. Now, we could argue, but should he have started any of those years? That's not what we're here for, though. Let's keep to the facts.
Yeah, sure, Donkey. We don't have to get into all that.
If you want to hear about Dan Moore Jr., go ahead and turn on any of my off-season podcasts where we talk about the offensive line, because you'll know my true feelings on that man real quick.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm going to be honest here, Gingy. The Steelers have a big problem in the fact that they still need to find 2 starters on the offensive line. I'm hearing a lot of talk of the Connor Williams chatter is picking up, but that dude just tore his ACL in December. Is that really going to help this team this year?
In December?
Yeah, he was a starting center for Miami, and in November or December he tore his ACL.
Yeah, that's not going to work for week 1, I don't think.
You're talking that's at least a 9-month recovery, but normally, and maybe it'll be better for him because he's not a speed player, normally it's 14 months until people are back to the form they were pre-injury.
Yeah, that'll be next season then, Donkey.
He could be in playing form this year. But then when we talk about it, let's talk about who Connor Williams is, and the answer is he might, and I'm putting might in emphasis here, he might be an upgrade from Mason Cole.
Well, that's not enough, Donkey. That's not enough.
I just don't want to. I want to know why Mason Cole hasn't been brought back yet, Gingy. What did Mason Cole? Whose Cheerios did he pee in?
If it's still a problem after the draft, he might be back, I'd say.
If Mason Cole is back as the Steelers' penciled-in starter, Gingy, does that change your confidence level going into the season?
It's certainly going to affect my grading of the offseason. I'll tell you that much.
In a positive or negative light?
What do you think?
I'm going to be honest right now with where the offseason stands. Bringing back Mason Cole would be a plus. For me, I know you're going to say negative, but I'm going to tell you right now, I see what we have in center, and I see what's available at center, and I think Mason Cole has to be brought back.
Yes, but we dropped the ball to that point. It needed to be handled before now, right? And I understand, yes, I think Mason Cole is the best of a bunch of bad options now, but I think in an offense that's going to be allegedly running around, surrounding the run game, center's pretty key, Donkey.
Yeah, making the right calls, making the right line adjustments, making the right eye adjustments. This is the biggest reason I think bringing back Mason Cole makes the most sense. So, yes, Arthur Smith is a different style of guy, but did we change our offensive line coach?
I believe we did, Donkey.
No, Matt Fire or Myers, whatever his name is. We still have the same freaking offensive line
guy?
coach.
Yeah,
so the philosophy is going to be the damn same thing as before. I know Mason Cole wasn't good. I know he was a black hole, but I'm going to be honest with you here. I have seen worse, and I've seen worse on the Steelers. I'm going to be honest here. Mason Cole is the best center the Steelers have had in 5 years. End of career Pouncey was garbage, and Kendrick Green was the worst center I've ever seen play football. He made me long for the days of let's go Sean Mahan and Jeff Harding's, Gingy. He made me long for those days.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty far down there.
Which, by the way, that's a guy who deserves a shout-out, Sean Mahan. I remember him as a Steeler. I remember we all were on him. Everybody wanted to run him out of the town because he was one of the first few names after Dermontti Dawson. That dude went on to have a Pro Bowl in his career and went on to have like a 10-year career, 8 of which was starting after Pittsburgh. So kudos to Sean Mahan, since I had to mention his name in this
There you
little
go.
chat.
Showed some love while you're at it.
But gee, I don't know if you remember the days of Hardings and Mahan, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Donkey.
boy,
I remember
that
the
led
days
to
of Dawson.
the days of superstardom. And then we go through those hard days, but we start building a decent line. You get a Willie Colon, a Chris Kimuatu, a Max Starks in there. And then you add Marquise Pouncey, who went on to have a great, great career. Undersized guy, really fit in there well. And it was all fun, jubilant life, and happiness
Don't forget about
until
Hall. Don't forget about
the
Hall of
snap.
Famer Alan Faneca.
Yeah, I
In
also
there.
left out a big Pro Bowler and David DeCastro, so yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Right guards, man. Who needs a right guard? Okay. I don't need no stinking right guard. This is this Gingy. I got James Daniels. All right.
Yeah, you're good. You're set. I know.
Yeah, for sure. But let's flip to the other side of the ball. The other really convenience pick I've seen a lot of is a lot of these end of the first round defensive backs being linked to the Steelers. Gingy, if the Steelers draft another cornerback in the first round, I'm going to cry because the Steelers can't do it.
We don't. We can't. There's too many other areas of need, Donkey.
I, I would argue corner is a spot you have to address. I just don't want it to be the first round because the Steelers in the first round with cornerbacks. Hell, I'm sure we could bring Artie Burns back.
Watch your mouth.
Hey, he's played pretty good since leaving Pittsburgh. Now, albeit it's been like 10 games over 4 years because he can't stay healthy. But the coverage numbers aren't bad, Gigi.
Yeah, it's bad juju, bad memories.
So, Gigi, is
Beat
there
over
any
the top. Fastest guy on the team get beat over the top.
a guy who's really good at man coverage getting moved into zone coverage schemes? I'll never understand it. Still can't believe that his rookie year he played more man than he did any other year. Like, oi, that's just bad luck. Gingy, any Steeler topics you want to talk about? Any draft things you want to bring up where you think the Steelers might go? Because by next week we should have at least the first round and possibly the second and third round picks to talk about, or those might be coming in while we're having the show.
That'll be fun. No, I am no Mel Kiper, Donkey. Like, I'll talk football with you, but there are so many variables, especially the farther you go down. Like, okay, if you're top 10, this might be fairly calculable, right? But at the position where the Steelers are at, with as many areas of need as they have, I could see them perhaps, if a guy slipped, right, taking best overall on the board, if a guy at 20 was still there, right? Or I could definitely see them overreaching for an area of need, as is sometimes documented with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I definitely don't want to sit and speculate too much, but I sure am excited for what we're going to be working with this year, Donkey.
Well, I'll put my guess out there in the world. It seems like the Pittsburgh Steelers, whenever they seem to be ignoring a prospect, that's always the guy. We've heard talks about Graham Barton being the guy. I've heard so much talks about their love for Frazier from West Virginia. I heard about their talks of the love for this guy from Auburn, or is it Georgia? One of those two. The center, who's a high upside guy, but really, really low floor guy and really a potential pick. That means the pick has to be Jackson Powers or Powers Jackson out of Oregon, right? Because that's the guy that's not talked about. That's the guy that's ignored. That's the guy who's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And personally, I said it before, I think year one will not necessarily be great, but if he has to start year one. But I do think that is the best center in the draft, and I do think that's a guy who will have a good career. I don't think he's going to hit the highs of Landon Dickerson, or oh my gosh, I can't think of the guy from the Chiefs that I really wanted us to draft 2 years ago. Either way, those two guys. But I really think the pick is going to be offensive line going to be center, and it's going to come out of Oregon, Gingy.
That sounds pretty likely to me. To be honest, we've been talking about a center this whole time. No need to overthink it, right?
It's going to be my actual pick that I want. Vontez Sweat is going to fall due to that DWI, and we're going to get him at the end of the first round and finally have a run-stuffing defensive tackle.
That'd be
That's
something,
my other hope.
wouldn't it? Right?
That's my
the
hope.
dream.
That's my hope pick, but my mind's telling me center. So, Gingy, any other topics you want to touch on here before it's time to bid adieu?
Not much major movement in the NFL, really. Right? They got that all out of their system here. Everyone's pretty much locked in for the draft. I don't know. Only final thing on that, we've been talking about who's picking this and who's picking that. Do you see anybody making any major moves up or down?
The Broncos are going to go get a quarterback. I don't know which one, but the Broncos are going to go get a quarterback.
It's going to be expensive. Holy smokes, it's going to be expensive.
It is.
They're going to have to get in the top 4 to do that.
And with only 2 first-round quarterbacks, I don't know about it. You say the top 4. I would not be surprised if it's a trade up and the pick is Michael Penix, to be honest.
Ooh.
Or perhaps, and I've called him this before, Bo Nix reminds me a little bit of someone that a head coach on a certain team, Sean Payton, might love. Bo Nix reminds me a little bit of Drew Brees. And I'm not talking in his accuracy. I'm talking in the style that he plays. Drew Brees always had that little fire, little, gotcha attitude. I really think Bo Nix is a Sean Payton type of guy.
That's a hot take, Donkey.
But you are talking that I think there's only 2 first-round quarterbacks in this draft. And that, of course, is Caleb Williams and all his little, I don't even know what you want to call it, sideshow shenanigans he's been putting on recently that just makes me laugh because it makes people uncomfortable, and Jaden Daniels. I'm not a fan of Drake May, and I have zero idea how the hell J.J. McCarthy's become not only a first-round pick, but a top 10 pick.
Yeah, talk about it. Possibly top 5. There's drafts out there, Donkeys, that got 1 through 4 with those quarterbacks that you just mentioned.
I don't get it, man. This is just like when I love Baker Mayfield, and I said, man, if he falls to the Steelers, I'd be tempted to take him. But Baker Mayfield had a second-round grade for me, and he goes 1-1. Like, what? Dude, obviously, I don't understand the quarterback position. Clearly, I loved Kenny Pickett, so that tells you all you need to know right there, right? I don't get the quarterback position in the NFL. I don't understand how any of it works, so who the hell am I to judge? I hope all those... This is my honest take. I hope everyone in this draft, all the success in the world, unless you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? I don't want to see any of these kids fail, do any of that stuff. I'm at that age where I don't really hate on players anymore. I enjoy watching great football. So it's a fun time. And I guess this will be a good time, Gigi, let you close out the talk before we get to a shout out.
Here, Donkey. I like it. I'm really looking forward to it next week. And only other thing I got projected forward, I hope Pittsburgh's bid was formidable. Boy, I'd be awesome to go see a draft there.
Ginger sure would show up in full colors, wearing
absolutely.
His black and gold tinted glasses. I'm not going to ask because I know Ginger's answer is no to the shout out, but I have a shout out, and that's to this time of year. It is always fun. All the scouts, this is where all their stuff comes through, so a shout out to all the Steelers scouts, and a shout out to all the players who are about to get their names said and have their dreams come true of reaching the NFL. Also, a shout out to a sad ending to the Penguin season, but kind of a deserved ending with the way they played.
Lost to the Islanders.
Yikes. At least they made a decent run at the end and kept it interesting. I hope Sid gets to finish his career as a Penguin. And I hope they give him a chance to reach another cup. Both him and Gino deserve it. Let's stop trading for overrated old people like Erik Karlsson and build a young roster that can support these wily old vets like Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. And with that, I'll let you know I am the Viking Donkey, Viking _ Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey of Ginger is where you get all the nonsensical shenanigans that are going on in here. We'll keep it going. Next week, we'll have something to talk about other than our hopes and dreams and literal nothingness. Leave us a like, comment, follow. Tell us if there's anything you'd like to hear. Gingy, bid him adieu.
Mutant Gingy, talking nonsensical. Here we go, Steelers.